Okay, welcome back to what I think I'm just going to be calling Next Level Podcast. Really just like long form video of what I talk about on my Instagram, but going to dive in a little bit further and get a little deeper here. So, throughout my process and this whole health journey, I have been very open, but definitely at times I have held back on things I want to share, like some things I still haven't openly discussed is like the heaviest weight that I got to and numbers. That because I'm ashamed, but I will share it down the line because I do think seeing the drastic weight that I got to and how much I have lost is an accomplishment for myself. But I don't necessarily like all the time when people share their weight because then people are constantly comparing themselves when people could look exactly the same and one person could weigh like 15 pounds more. It's just our bodies are all very different. So, for the most part, I've been pretty open about my entire journey. I'm selective with who I share my experiences with. But I kind of wanted to talk about today, like why I decided to document this entire journey and like what I plan to do with it. I started this journey probably when I first started gaining weight. Back 10 years ago in 2013, I was in college. I started my freshman year, and I already knew that I started seeing a difference in my body by the time I came home for winter break a freshman year. They say freshman 15. I probably gained more than that. This came from so many different factors. I mean, this was the first time in my life I was free to live on my own, make my own choices, eat the foods that I wanted. And I definitely took advantage of that. I also have an unhealthy or had an unhealthy relationship with food. And that's not really helpful when your entire life is essentially a buffet in college. So I started gaining the weight and I would recognize that every time I would like come home. I remember coming back, the weight has affected my personal life in so many different ways. People don't always think that because I still maintain good relationships with friends. I make new friends. I am still out and about and active, but I have like lost a lot of friends because of my weight because I have held back on keeping myself involved in everybody else's day-to-day life. Just as a perfect example, I'll never forget when I came home for winter break my freshman year and I turned down like every plan that I was invited to with friends from high school because I was so embarrassed and ashamed of the weight that I gained. Obviously, this is a lot deeper than just weight. Those are like personal problems that I am now in the process of dealing with. But it's just really interesting to look back on because at that point, oh my God, I would die to be at the weight that I was when I came home winter break freshman year in college. But at that time, it was a really big deal for me to be 15 or 20 pounds more than what I had been when I left for college. So I would not go to plans because I was so embarrassed and ashamed and I didn't want anybody to see me like that. And that was the first time I started isolating myself from doing things that I wanted to do but felt like I couldn't because I was so inside my own head. That runs really deep in terms of like insecurities and just so many other factors that's more than just the weight. So just to backtrack a little bit to give you an idea, in high school, I wasn't like overweight by any means, but I was definitely bigger than other people. I was never super toned. I was always considered tall. So when I danced and cheered my whole life, like I was always towards the end of the line if we were in height order. I was the base or the back spot in cheerleading, the roles that the super thin girls didn't have. I was always thick boned, and that's just something that I couldn't get away from because when you grow up, I mean, obviously, like your kids, you compare yourself to other people, you look at the movies and the TV shows, and you see what the ideal body looks like. Now, again, we're talking about a middle schooler and a high schooler. It's crazy to look back on now, but when you're in that moment, it's all you think about. I was never the thinnest person in the room, but I also wasn't overweight. I will never forget in high school, I cheered and I did have my cheerleading coach comment on my body one time, which looking back now is kind of crazy to think about, but she like mentioned my Spanx getting a little tight. I always had insecurities about my legs. That's just something that I grew up with, unfortunately. Even when I was thinner, I had cellulite on my legs. Thanks, mom. And it's something that I have been insecure about my entire life, but I still never thought of myself as overweight, just as like not perfect, which is funny to think about now. But when I had that cheerleading coach make a comment to me, I was horrified that anybody even like commented on my body in that way. I didn't think about it as like anger. I thought about it as like, oh my God, like I guess I do need to lose some weight. And from that moment on, I changed a little bit about what I ate. I also remember like trying to lose weight for prom and only eating protein and vegetables. And I did lose the weight, I guess, but it was horrifying that I had to do that in high school when I was not overweight. And when I did lose the weight, I remember my cheerleading coach commenting on it again and letting me know that she noticed, which just feels so wrong now to think about, but that's the reality. And I'm sure shaped a lot of the issues that I have continued to have 10 years later. So when I got to college and half my meals were eaten at an open buffet and I had the option to eat whatever I went a little bit nuts. I also was a little restricted back home. My sister has a disease where she's limited in what she can eat, and therefore my family house was gluten free, and also a lot of other foods were restricted. So when you go to a place where you can eat whatever you want and you don't have to limit yourself, you kind of overindulge. Unfortunately, I was not just dealing with like the freshman 15 and that freedom aspect. I was also dealing with what was the start of a really bad food addiction. I do look back on my childhood and I believe I have always had some sort of addiction factor in terms of food. I remember like always having just an unhealthy relationship with food and going to certain friends' houses because of the snacks that they had, because we weren't allowed to have those at my house, or hiding foods and eating them in my room late at night. That is definitely something that I did as a kid and just never realized obviously what it turned into down the road. Fast forward to college, you have the freedom and the ability to eat whatever you want. And that's when I really started putting on the pounds. And that's when I started my journey of finding ways to lose the weight. So when I tell you I've tried just about everything, I have tried just about everything. Every type of diet that you can think of. I've seen personal trainers. I've done these specialty weight loss programs. I've done the protein shakes. I've done this. I've done that. I've done courses. In college, it was a little bit different. I just couldn't get a grasp on it. But when I knew things were bad when I started choosing to stay in and order food versus going out with my friends. This happened a lot, especially my junior and senior year of college. I noticed myself staying in and ordering large amounts of food. And I remember being horrified if anybody was like walking by my apartment when food was delivered. Like, I hope they don't see me and the amount of food that I just ordered. And it wasn't good food. It was always like pizza and stuff along those lines. So I remember the food really starting to affect my social life a lot in college. At first, it was the weight, and then it became a vicious cycle. The more weight I gained, the more I wanted to stay home. The more I stay home, the more food I wanted to order. And that's kind of how this whole thing got really bad. So I graduated college in 2017 and I got my first real job the fall of 2017. I remember the summer when I wasn't working, I was living at my shore house because I had no desire to go home. I was like an independent college grad. I didn't want to go live with my parents. So I lived at my shore house alone and I ate a lot that summer. That was like the first time I was ordering like copious amounts of food and binging them. I had nothing else to do but to eat. I was applying for jobs, but I didn't really know what I wanted to do. So all I was doing was ordering food, eating, waking up the next morning, eating more. And finally, I got a job in September and I moved to my first apartment in Hoboken. And I actually lost weight at this time. I think there were a couple factors there. I mean, it was the first time I was like paying rent for an apartment. Even though I had a job that was paying me, obviously you move into like a city and things get more expensive. So I was probably eating a lot less. I also lived in a third story walk up. So my weight fluctuated a little bit during that time. I would say that's probably the last time in like 7 years where I was at a weight where I felt comfortable with how I looked. But it's still ironic because in that moment, I still felt like the fattest person in the world, even though I clearly was not. that's how I felt because I was still heavier than what I used to be. And one of my friends always told me, she's like, Jen, stop trying to compare yourself to your high school body. We were children there. We're women now. We're never going to look like your high school body, and you shouldn't look like your high school body. And that was a big realization for me. So I kind of accepted where I was at, but I still was very insecure and uncomfortable because I knew I was a heavier weight than what I had been in high school. And for some reason, that is just what always stuck with me. I was still living a pretty unhealthy lifestyle at that point, in the sense that I didn't cook that much. So I was still ordering food, definitely going out a lot, partying with my friends. That was probably like the funnest year of my life, was like the couple years post college. I had an amazing time. I loved it. But definitely things started to take a turn when I moved to my second apartment in Hoboken, which was in 2019. And that's when I found myself really not cooking at all, just ordering every meal in. I started really making money at that time, so I didn't mind spending it on food. Obviously, still had an unhealthy relationship with food. So I would say the year that I moved into that apartment is really when I started gaining weight significantly and really losing control. And then that's when COVID hit, and we were told it was going to be 2 weeks to flatten the curve. And I remember ordering all these healthy groceries and was like, this is going to last me for 2 weeks and this is going to be great. And then we're going to come out of this and, things will be back to normal. And that just never happened. I just wasn't a cook in general. So I didn't enjoy cooking for myself. I was just ordering food. And again, I was in a city with so many options that it was literally endless. I always had something that I could order. COVID definitely expedited a lot of the weight gain for me. I didn't go out. There was nothing to do. I'm not really a big exercise person, so I never enjoyed working out. And then from there, things just got worse and worse. In between all of this, throughout the years, is when I have done every diet. I have cried to my parents and my friends about how I was feeling and that I just couldn't get it under control, that I just kept gaining weight and I didn't know what to do. And I was just so frustrated and insecure and hated how I looked. And it was a really brutal time. And obviously, that stuff still resonates, but I still didn't have a full understanding that I was dealing with an actual problem. So it wasn't until a couple of years later, probably when TikTok came about, when more people opened up on social media about their experiences. And it was pretty clear that I was dealing with like severe binge eating disorder. This was something I just couldn't get under control. I did see a therapist in Hoboken who gave me that official diagnosis. I also, at the time, was dealing with severe depression and anxiety, really stuff that actually affected my day to day getting to work. I couldn't take public transportation. I couldn't do anything without feeling sick. And I was just struggling a lot at this time. And when I was dealing with the bad moments of anxiety and depression, I definitely did not leave my house and definitely was not cooking. I was ordering food. It was the only comfort that I had, which obviously made things a lot worse. Now it's about 2020. I'm in a new apartment in Hoboken, and here I had a lot of bad memories. I just had a lot of stuff go on that time during that time in my personal life, and anytime anything negative happened, it always steered me in the direction of food. Food was there for me when I was happy, food was there for me when I was sad. I started getting really sick in this apartment. This is when like things got serious for me. I was just at a weight that just seemed so unmanageable. I could hardly leave my apartment. This is where the depression got really bad and took over. I mean, I remember when I moved into my apartment, into that new one, I did not leave. I did not physically step out of my apartment for a week straight. That's crazy to think about when I look back on it, but I just didn't leave. I was so overwhelmed. And whenever somebody would come over, my sister would come over, I had friends come and visit, I'd be like, oh, on your way out, could you take this bag to the trash for me? And they would do it, and nobody probably thought anything of it, but that trash was sitting there for days, and I did not take care of it. I did have a balcony, a massive patio actually, so I did step outside, but I was not going on walks. I was not moving my body. I was not exercising. All I was doing was ordering food and eating and just really living a very unhealthy lifestyle. I'll do another episode on the depression and the anxiety of it all and how much it's all factored into this entire journey, but that's for another day. Finally, it got to the point where things were so bad and I was just stuck and I did not know what to do. I was frozen in time. I felt like no matter what I tried, nothing would help because that was my experience in the past, whether that was because of a negative attitude or because I was dealing with something way more serious than what I was trying to fix. I don't know, but either way, I was stuck. So my mom introduced me to this wellness center called Hippocrates. It's located in West Palm Beach, Florida. People go there to cure diseases and illnesses, and it's unbelievable what they do. I went there for 5.5 weeks. It was one big detox. You're eating a raw vegan plant-based lifestyle, which was very different than the pizza and mozzarella stick lifestyle that I chose before. And while in the end, I don't think that diet and lifestyle benefits me and my body, it was a great experience. It taught me a lot about myself, that I was able to put myself out of my comfort zone, that I was able to do something like this. It was a really big deal. It helped my health in a lot of ways. I think that I was getting to a point where things were so severe. And this was a way for me to at least taper them down temporarily and completely change my lifestyle and just prove that I was able to do something. Now, I think that place is incredible for those that are dealing with very specific diseases and they need certain forms of treatment. Unfortunately for me, the issues that I deal with wasn't really addressed. And I did some of the psychotherapy stuff and I loved this therapist, but he didn't know what I was going through and he couldn't relate. And it didn't help me so much in the long run. It definitely opened my eyes in other aspects and I learned so much and I met the most amazing people there, but obviously it didn't fix the problems that I was still dealing with back home. So when I came back home, I was so nervous and I was so scared because I worked so hard when I was at Hippocrates to make the changes in my life, to stay in a routine, and I was just scared that I was going to ruin all that when I got home. And luckily, I have the best support system in the world. When I got home, I did stick with it for a while, but it was a pretty hard diet to follow, a vegan, plant based, raw diet. It just wasn't me, and it wasn't what I needed because that wasn't going to fix the food addiction issues that I was having. Also, just to point out, I went from eating so terribly to eating in that raw vegan diet. And in 5 weeks, I only lost 13 pounds, which at the weight that I was at, only lose 13 pounds in 5 weeks is not a lot. I should have lost a lot more. So then and there, I knew something else must have been going on. So obviously, Hippocrates was my introduction into West Palm. And I always thought I wanted to move to Florida. I always knew I wanted to move out of New Jersey. I never thought I would actually do it. But being at Hippocrates and driving to downtown one day, I knew this is the place where I wanted to live. And I told myself I would do whatever it took to make it happen. And so I spent the entire year researching every coastal town in Florida and really still landing on West Palm. And that's why I ended up moving here. When I got back, I stuck to the diet. And then slowly I started reintroducing some of the bad foods back into my life until it just went to a total rock bottom where I was just back on eating the worst foods you could possibly imagine. I also was just so unhealthy. I was wheezing, I was sick, I didn't feel good all the time, and I was just really struggling at this point. And I knew that it was time to make a move and at least get out of Hoboken and then figure it out from there. So I'm lucky enough I had the opportunity to move back into my shore house. And I told myself when I'm ready to move to Florida, I can just move from there. But I had to get out of Hoboken. I was just miserable in that apartment. It was so unhealthy for me to be there, and it was time to make a change. So when I moved to the shore, I'm still binge eating. I'm still not being healthy. But about a month later, I flew down to Florida, found my apartment, and moved by October 2023. So every time I make a big change in my life, I always tell myself, like, this is it. This is when you're going to start. This is make the change with the food. This is a move. You can make a change. I remember I moved down here, and the first day after my parents left, I put on jeans for the day to like work, which was crazy. I've never worn jeans voluntarily for a couple years prior because why would I? But I was like, I'm going to be presentable and it's going to help motivate me to lose weight. And then just week by week went by and I needed to try every new restaurant that was in the area. And I started ordering groceries and the worst foods possible that you can imagine. I just totally indulged and I did not hold back. A lot of 2024 was spent binging and trying new foods and gaining weight. I think within the year, I probably gained like over 75 pounds, which is crazy to think about compared to where I was at. But the numbers that I hit on the scale were alarming to see. And when I started, like, and I did not weigh myself when I was like in the process of gaining weight. And when I finally decided like I needed to make changes with my diet, that's when I started to weigh myself, and I couldn't believe it. And I know at one point I was higher than the number that was on the scale that I saw when I started. So that was pretty sad and scary. And I remember that happening last summer, and I knew it was time for me to figure something out, but I was at a loss. Again, I've tried absolutely everything, and I just could not figure out what it was that would work. I ended up speaking with this woman who has always been sort of a guide for my family. She's an intuitive person and she's helped me a lot in the past. And I called her and I was like, I'm at a loss. I don't know what to do. And she told me that somebody is going to help me and it's coming soon. And you just need to find who that person is. But they live in Florida, they are local, and that's the person that's going to change your life. And I was like, great, that's awesome. But who are they and how do I find them? And she's like, somebody that you know is going to refer you over to them. So keep in mind at this point, I have like 3 friends in Florida. I don't know many people. And I'm asking around, like, hey, by chance, do you know somebody that I don't even know what they do, but maybe could help me with problems that I've been having? Maybe a therapist, anybody? And everybody obviously said no. So I went back to the woman who's intuitive, and she's like, okay, here's the referral. This is the person. I was like, oh, so you knew all along? Maybe she wanted me to do the work. I don't know. Either way, she introduced me to the person that literally changed my life. I was introduced to Mary. Mary is an NLP coach. NLP is neuro linguistic processing. It is a tool and a technique used in psychology and life. So I started seeing her back in July of 2024, and she is the first person that I have sought help from that I actually felt like she wanted to help me. She understood me. She's gone through a lot of the same problems that I have gone through. She knew how to deal with me as a person. She really studies people and gets to know them. And I remember the first time we met, I asked how long this is going to take. And she said she didn't really know. Some people see changes right away. Some people it takes 8 sessions. And when she took the first 2 sessions to just get to know me, I was so frustrated and really just wanted to get started. And obviously down the road, I recognized how important those first 2 sessions were. And even by session 8, we were still at the tip of the iceberg. There was still so much that needed to be uncovered. Something that I have always done, if I was scared or thought that something wasn't working, I just stopped doing it. And there were definitely times where I didn't want to go to our sessions or just stopped booking them. And she always followed up with me. I'm literally getting emotional thinking about it, but if she didn't continue to follow up with me and if she didn't genuinely care the way that she did, I would not be where I'm at today. I'm so grateful to her and the way she guided me to where I needed to be. She really changed my life, and I'll do a whole episode later on exactly what it's like to meet with her and what is discussed during those sessions without sharing too much detail, of course. But I'll give a little bit more insight as to why it was such a significant and positive impact for me. But she is the reason that I am here now. I gave up. I gave up. There was nothing that was going to fix me until I finally found hope from speaking with her. She just got it, and I'm just so grateful. And it took a lot of time. I think I've spoken to her 25 times now. It's a lot of sessions. So since July of last year, and I took a break in the middle, I took a few months off, and she never gave up. She kept following up and making sure I booked my appointments. And if she didn't, I would not be here in the place that I'm at right now. And I'm eternally grateful. we uncovered so much. We broke down so many barriers. We got rid of so many emotional blocks. And it took a lot of time. But from July until February, I didn't think things were changing. There were like little things here and there that got better. But it wasn't until February of this year, of 2025, when the changes really went into effect. And I am finally seeing the positive results and breaking free from the chains of food addiction and the emotional response that I have suppressed for so long that have led me to using food as a band aid for a lot of my problems. I started off this video explaining why I wanted to document this all, and I guess going into the history of how I got here is an important start to it. But really, I've been documenting this journey because I want to help other people. The same way Mary has helped me, I want to be a resource for other people. I want to help them. And I don't think I could have done that if I didn't hit all the rock bottoms that I hit. I don't think I would have been able to do that if I didn't gain as much weight as I gained. And if I didn't see those scary numbers on the scale, I wouldn't be able to relate to people as much as I would want to. I had to try everything and fail because everything taught me a lesson in the end. But that is why I'm documenting this journey. So I have it all for myself. I can help other people one day. I'd love to write a book and tell my whole story. There are so many details that are hard to share on a video and even to remember, and things do come up all the time that I write down because I want to be able to help people. I want to share my story. I want people to understand why I am the way I am and how I have transformed in what feels like a new life right now. Today is March 20th, 2025. This shift in what I've been eating happened on February 10th, literally a little over a month ago. But I've never spoken with such confidence that this is going to stick because I've never had this feeling before. I feel like a different person. This isn't about the food that I'm eating and even the way that I have changed what I eat. This is about no longer feeling like I am in the confines of my own brain. I seriously felt like I was in a cell and the key was locked and I just couldn't get out. And for the first time in so long, I finally feel that freedom. I have no desire to binge. I have no urge. I've learned that the feelings of binges and urges will probably never go away. You just know how to deal with it a little better. Despite going through the hardest points in my life, many times thinking that I wasn't going to make it, many times just thinking I was never going to have a future, I stopped picturing what it would be like to get married, have kids, grandkids. I've gone through a lot and a lot that I haven't shared. And that's why I want to be open and transparent because I know that everything I've gone through is for a reason. There is some sort of higher purpose. I don't know what I believe in, but whatever the universe has done for me while I have struggled, it has given me the gift of the ability to help others. And that's really why I believe I have gone through this entire journey and what I am meant to do in the future. Anyways, thank you for listening. If you are still here, comment a pencil emoji for teaching because I want to teach and help others. And I appreciate all the support always. And I will see you on the next one.